Out Girls. My name is Sammy and this is Amy, and we are just two girls in their 30s who love reading fantasy romance books. Our aim for this channel is to create like a little book club environment somewhere. Yeah, safe little space, something cozy where it feels like you're just chatting to your friends about whatever you've read recently. So because of that, we're going to talk actually really in depth about the book today. So there might be some spoilers, so maybe tread with caution. If you haven't read the book, we probably wouldn't recommend that you continue on, I suppose. So, yeah.
And in depth is definite because this is our part 2 of one book.
Yes.
So we got a little carried away in the first video. The book that we are talking about today is from Blood and Ash, which is the first book in the Blood and Ash series. Lots of spoilers, as Sammy said, because we talk about everything. We don't hold back. There's no holding back spoilers here.
No.
We are talking about the story itself as well as the characters we loved and the ones that we hated, as well as, well, we've already read all the books, but I guess as we go, there's definitely some theories that need to be thought in there. If you enjoy, please subscribe for more content.
Yay!
Alright.
Okay, that was better. Yeah, that felt a bit more natural and robotic.
And now, do you remember, because we didn't say where we
I did. I highlighted it. Keep going and you find a yellow spot.
Okay, we should have done this before. A yellow spot?
Keep going. We just...
Oh my god, we're almost done.
Yeah, I don't think that this should not be as long as the first video.
Okay.
That has been such a mission to edit. So much footage.
Too much talking.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I feel weird that we haven't gone over our notes. Like,
I know.
I think it'll be fine.
I also feel so excited to jump back into Poppy and Castile because I feel so far removed from them already.
I actually do as well.
Even though I haven't been that long, I feel like so much has happened.
We've had so much
with the books. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. For context, we have both just done Shadow in the Ember. Well, you read it for a second time, and then we read together A Light in the Flame. And we got very absorbed in that world.
I took maybe 2.5 days. I promised Sammy that I would pace myself, but I didn't. I lied.
Yeah, and so I had to hurry and catch up. But very exciting little plug. We did some little snippets of us and our reading experience of that. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, anyway. Okay, so we left off, we finished the ride. Poppy had cut sick.
Are we talking about when she's back in bed as well? Because Castile carried her back to the bedroom. He knocked her out. Did he knock her out?
Did he knock her out? Or this is when you thought he might have used compulsion, I thought.
Oh, yeah. Did we make a note about that?
We have not gone through it.
Oh. Anyway, I thought he knocked her out, but maybe he...
Oh, yeah, no, you have written it. Hawk knocks her out to get her to stop.
Yes.
Look,
read your notes. So yeah, she gets knocked out and he carries her back to her room because she's just losing it still, right?
Yeah.
She's just screaming and screaming and screaming.
It's honestly, so like heart-wrenching, isn't it?
I know. I didn't know where she'd go from here with losing Victor. Like, I thought she'd really snap.
Oh my god, my little tingle of tears.
Oh, golly, I'm so sorry.
This is perfect. At my house, we have our clock. Oh, we should tell everyone where we are.
Oh, yes. Thank you to my gracious host. We're at my sister's house today.
So it's
different location.
So aesthetic and beautiful.
My sister will be happy to know her house is good one.
Yeah, I kind of feel bad if we have to come back to my mess of a house after this.
Yeah, we might have to rent the space.
We might have to rent it.
And at my sister's dining table. Okay, where are we at? I'm struggling to think about anything exciting that happens here. I think it's just...
So she is summoned back to the capital, and Hawk gives her her dagger back.
I think there is a moment where they get into a bit of a conversation here, and it is quite sweet.
I've just seen, I'm assuming it's Amy's note, Hawk on horse.
What? Why? I don't even remember.
Because we get a lot of Hawk on a horse, and I think this was our first.
Oh, because after the rite they go to the capital and it's Hawk on a horse. I feel like I remember now.
Oh, I'm excited. You just...
The first moment, I just remember like, oh my god, the first moment where he like tugs her back into his like nook and they're on the horse and I'm like, oh yes, girl. Snuggling.
Sorry. I feel like literally when I'm editing the video, it's me just like in awe listening to you talk about it. So yeah, more of that. Okay. Alright.
Also, we're still calling him Hawk, but I accidentally just called him Castile before.
Oh, that's okay.
I know that.
No, that's revealed in this book.
Okay.
And the people
That's
know
revealed
by now
Okay, good.
that it's definitely spoiler
Either
territory.
because we spoiled it for them or they
Oh, don't say that. Okay, so yes, so Hawk's on a horse and pulls her in, and then they're just like, yeah, what is it?
But first, I think we need to go back just one more quick second. When they're in the bedroom together, they're like, she wakes up and realizes that she's kind of been drugged with that like sleeping tonic that she never normally wanted to take, and she's feeling, I think, a little vulnerable, like against her will almost, because she's in this bed. And there's a really nice conversation, and I can't remember the exact context of it, but Hawk basically says to her, "It's okay for you to be feeling like this." There was like a little validation moment where he was like, "This is crazy, and what's happened to you is crazy, but it's okay that you feel like this," and almost like you will feel better soon, because she just woke up and she was just like still so like broken inside.
I really like how he always validates her feelings.
Yeah.
I think it continues that the whole way through. It's really nice. Like, it's never irrational. Like, she's never too irrational, or I always get called silly. She's never told that she's silly.
Never.
So,
Wouldn't you say come out of Hawk's mouth?
no. Maybe we'll send the voices.
The horse. Can't say that.
Just this snippet. Once I work out how to do it.
Okay, so now we can get to the horse, and so they're on their way to the capital.
Yeah, so she's been summoned back because of everything that happened at the right, and the Queen kind of wants her close so that she can keep her safe, I guess.
Yeah, but what we don't know at this point is they aren't going to the Queen. They're heading elsewhere.
Wow, yep.
I just
Straight
came
to
out
it.
and said
Yeah,
that. So
amazing.
on the way to
We
what we find out is New Haven.
Yeah, on the way, yeah.
I think we're quite far from that, but I don't know. But they get attacked by some craven.
Yeah, and wait, but isn't it before that? I don't know where we've
the night time. No, I think that's later.
Oh, is it?
I think it's like the
Okay,
third or
we've
fourth
maybe
night.
done our notes in different order.
Oh, okay, no.
So they're going through the Blood Forest.
Yeah. And
I can't remember the order.
it might be one of the first couple of nights, actually. It might be before the Craven attack. But
Because it could be, I had a feeling it was one of the first nights because she was still having nightmares from the bride.
You're
but
right.
I have the worst memory, so.
You're right.
Thank you.
So,
I need to hear that sometimes.
so there's a really saucy scene that we love, and it's almost the first interaction between Poppy and Hawk outside of the castle, I think, which is a big thing for her. Like,
yeah.
I feel like she's already donned this different persona. She's not veiled because she's out on the road, and it's really sweet. And I love that there's like this subtle undertone of like an ulterior motive from Hawk, because he says that he wants to sleep with her or on her bedroll lay with her because he knows she has these awful nightmares, and if she screams, she's going to attract like all sorts of things in the night.
Yeah.
So there's this like, I can't say no.
Yeah. Protect.
And then he basically lulls her to sleep in the best way possible. And I said to you after we read these books that I loved that a lot of times in these like romance novels, we just jump straight to sex, because often one or both parties has had sex before. So that's just straight where we go. And I loved that in this book, her like, we call it her sexual education, is like in line with what would normally happen. It's slow and sweet, and it's very like, it's very respectful,
nice.
even though he's got her in the bush. Essentially.
Yeah, that's fine.
Everything else about it felt very respectful. And I think he does say later that the reason they didn't do more is because she didn't deserve to be ravaged on the forest floor or something along those lines.
Ravaged? Oh my gosh, what a word.
Yeah.
But
there's also a guard not far off.
Yeah.
Who we will come to know more in the books. But it's like, looking back now, I'm like, it's that first moment of just Kieran having to like ride the wave with them.
Yeah.
Just like going with their crazy love flow.
I think when you realise, I guess, that he could hear everything. It's just like, oh my god.
So good. But yeah, so that happens.
And
we all took a moment to recover from that.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's the whole way through, but maybe definitely towards the end. He talks about how she is just not what he expected. And he really ponders on that a lot.
Yeah. I guess in like every way, right? She can defend herself, she's outspoken with him.
Yeah, but she's also, I don't know, she listens to him, she opens up to him. And I think when it comes perhaps to the end and you realise that there's all this ulterior stuff going on with him, he definitely does seem conflicted, doesn't he?
I think as well, because he probably realises that, I think he just assumes that she's been privileged her entire life, right? He thinks that she's just been like
the same,
veiled and like had everything she wants, lived in a castle, never left the wall, never like understood that there was like danger outside in the big wide world. But she definitely does. She's like on the rise, fighting Craven. She goes to help the
she does what she can. Yeah.
So she's actually
despite being so sheltered as well.
Plus not to mention all the abuse that she's suffered.
Yeah.
Like she's lived within the castle walls and she's been sheltered, but actually she's had a pretty horrible life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alright, so where are we? Then there's a Craven attack.
And the Barretts.
And some Barretts. I always say Barretts.
Barretts.
I don't know.
Because it sounds like rats, and I think there's like huge rats.
Yeah.
Barretts.
I
don't know what to say actually.
But we love this moment because it's I think it's the first moment, apart from obviously when he catches her on the rise, she's already doing stuff, but instead of even considering telling her not to defend herself, he just throws her a sword.
Supports it. Yeah, absolutely.
I think it might not be this scene, but there's this throughout the book, there's this whole like cute sexual undertone where he makes it so sexy that she can protect herself. Yeah. But also this like competitive streak between them where he's like, how many did you kill? Yeah. And I love it every time.
And I think you might have made this note, I can't remember, but he tells her that he thought nothing would be sexy about the Craven until she's killing him. And it's mid-fight, like he stops fighting to pass that comment.
I don't think that type of writing scene will ever get old to me. Like when they're in the middle of a battle and
there's banter
and he's just like so like taken by her. And like every time they could write it 50 times in a book, and every time I'd be like, yes. She looks so great, doesn't she? I love that.
Oh my gosh.
Alright, where are we?
Okay, and then one of the guards.
Yeah, he dies.
Dies protecting her, and she takes his pain away in front of, I guess, everyone there.
Yeah.
And that's when it really hits home for Hawke that the rumours about her being able to ease pain are true.
Yeah, because then he realises that she's the one that's been dealing with the curse. He had heard a rumour coming to Macedonia that there was someone helping the curse, like he was also doing, I think, but not taking their pain, just killing them. Yeah. And now he knows that it's true. But there's also that, I think is at this moment where the guard says something along the lines of, is she safe or is she okay? Do you remember reading something like that? I wonder if that was, and I think at that moment straight away I was like, oh, all these people around Hawke want to protect her, like she's actually like safe here. Whereas previously in the castle, like Victor was taking care of her, but not protecting her really. Yeah. And whereas this guy's now physically dying to keep her alive.
Yeah, true.
And all he cares about on his death is like, is she okay?
And was he one of Hawke's guards? Or I think it must have been one of her.
Maybe one of her guards.
Like royal guards, maybe. I don't know. Okay, yes, and then
we get to New Haven.
Yes, like you're saying. Yep, go.
And this second time that I read this moment was so much funnier than the first time.
Oh, really? I remember sorry to cut you off. No. I remember the first time reading it and I was getting stressed because I was really confused.
What is happening?
Yeah.
Well, the second time around, it was so funny because there's that banter between Kieran and Castile when they arrive at Hawke, where they're like, have you been here before? And they're like, a time or two. And then Kieran's like, they act as if royalty are among them. When you read that back
I'll have to go back and read it again.
Yeah, you realise that Kieran's actually taking the piss out of him so hard, like, dude. what are we saying?
Yeah.
And obviously Poppy's a little confused about the reception because it's intense. Like everyone's like cheering for them.
Yeah.
He's very popular, basically. And she's like, you're just a guard.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think she realizes at some point that the Lord or whatever is not there, and that confuses her a bit too. I think she starts getting a little bit suspicious at this point.
Yeah.
Or, not suspicious, but random things just don't seem right.
Yeah.
Like the welcome, and then that the Lord is not in at that current point in time.
Yeah, they say he's off hunting, and she's like, they don't go out in the daytime.
Yeah.
Why is he hunting?
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing now that happens is they have sex for the first time. And not so much the sex, which is great, but it's the fact that there's this whole build-up of her choosing to reveal herself to him because she's like, I choose this.
Yeah, and it's the first thing really that she's chosen for herself.
And it's also, I think, her like conscious decision to not be the maiden because she knows once she does this, she's not the maiden.
And she has that worry, doesn't she, that something's gonna like I guess happen with the gods, or she's gonna displease the gods.
And I think when I think about it now, that like I never really thought this before, that choice for her to step away and be the maiden, to choose Hawke in that moment, she still knows that all these other people's ascensions are tied to hers in the back of her mind. She doesn't know why, but she's just gone.
It wasn't
the
like
most important person in the world to me right now is Hawke.
Yeah.
And I think knowing what comes
when
you look at that, just like, oh, you poor thing, your poor little heart.
Yeah.
I don't actually, and then immediately after, he says, don't forget that this was real.
Yeah. And as soon as he says that, it gets you like...
I don't mind though, because it leads into the scene of my dreams later on, the forest, where he says, you forgot it was real. Now you know. I love that I just looked like I was like gnawing on a little drumstick.
I didn't get what you were doing there, I must admit.
Got it.
Oh, I feel like that's another picture you're going to have to draw for us.
Oh, okay. I've never drawn anything like, okay. I feel like I just couldn't do Castor's biceps justice. Maybe we'll have Adam model do a little flex. Oh my goodness. Okay. So I've got a little tangent.
I just went to sword fighting. What? Okay, so I'm so distracted.
So what happens is Hawke has to leave.
One quick note that we made that I think is probably important is that Hawke realised before this that she at some point has taken his pain away.
Oh. When does he realise that? After they have sex?
Before
they have sex.
Well,
he says you've done that before.
Yeah.
Is that when that happens?
Yeah, right. And then so that will happen. Yeah. Oh, going back to when he says not to forget that it was all real. Yeah, I think your heart like kind of
skips a beat.
Yeah.
You know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you're like, well, why?
Why do we not need to remember? Yeah. Okay. So then.
Sorry, I got so distracted by the boom. Yes. Okay. And then, so he leaves, he gets called away to something.
We don't know what, I think it's just a conveniently timed, I'm gonna go, so then this thing will happen.
Yeah, and then Philip, one of the royal guards, barges into the room and tells her that they need to leave.
Yeah, because I guess something we didn't say is that when she leaves to go on to the capital, she leaves with part of like some are custody, some are and some are her royal guards, like true royal guards.
Is it like 3 or 4 of them?
Yeah.
Something like that.
And they, I don't know how, we don't really know, but at this point they've started to realise that these people are not what they're seeing.
Yeah, the guards feel something in particular is off.
Yeah.
Like particularly with Hawke's crew.
Yeah. And so he basically comes in and he says, let's go, we got to get out of here.
Yeah.
And then, so they start to flee.
Yeah.
And then they're running towards the stables.
Well, I think Kieran's chasing them towards the stables, isn't he? Or is he in the stables?
I think he sees them on their way to the stables or something like that, and then he starts to chase them. But he's chasing them in his human form, or is he chasing them in his walking?
He changes, yeah.
He changes halfway, and all of a sudden Poppy's like, oh my god, and her guard is like, see, I told you, let's go. But in her mind, immediately, the first thing she's thinking is, where's Hawk? Is he okay?
Exactly.
Because even now, she doesn't doubt him. She's like, he's not tied up in this. Where is he? I need to help him, even though he's like a badass guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't need her help.
I think I just need to say, just referring back to our previous video, I think still at this point, I didn't realise this was a wolf vampire story.
We now have someone physically turning into a wolf in front of you, and you still don't know.
But I think as well, I think at this point, maybe I kind of had, I definitely had connected that Hawk and the Dark One were probably the same person. I kind of had feelings that Hawk and Castile were the same.
Yeah.
I kind of thought that maybe he was also Wolven because it mentioned how fast he moved and stuff. But I didn't think of Wolven as in werewolf. And therefore there must be vampires. Never made that connection. That never happened.
Still baffles me to this day, Sammy.
It baffles me too. I'm relatively intelligent at times. I'm like, how could one miss this?
This might be where the silly comes from.
We won't talk about that. But I think as well, this is therapy session.
Tell us.
I think when I read, and I think I mentioned this in our the flame little vlog thing, I think I'm a very literal person, and when I'm reading something, I read it like very face value. I don't know.
I'm constantly suspicious. I'm a suspicious reader.
Yeah.
I'm looking for all the stuff underneath, trying to pick it apart. And then you'll see all of my theories and none of them come because I'm so suspicious. I've got like a million things on the go.
Yes, oh my gosh, it's so funny.
We need to like timestamp one of my videos because I literally say a theory about something and then 2 minutes later I film a follow-up video and I'm like, I should have just kept reading, now I sound like an idiot.
That definitely didn't happen.
Didn't happen at all.
Some things I theorise, but I think some things I just, I believed Hawk was who you said he was.
You didn't see a reason not to trust him just like Poppy.
That's why it hurt so much.
You really felt the pain. They're running and they get to the barn, and in the barn, Castile comes barging through, and there's also...
Is he there yet? No.
Jericho. Yeah, Jericho's there, and Jericho is a jerk.
Yeah.
I must admit, not as much a jerk as Tavius. Like, you know when you read that first line and I told you, I hate him?
Yeah.
For Jericho, there wasn't that instant, like, dislike, but he's just really, like...
I think
he's just mean.
Definitely later you have discussed for him, I think.
Yeah.
Or I did.
Or, yeah, from that third scene, I guess, technically.
Yeah.
Probably. But here he's kind of just saying, remember how I told you I was going to kill you?
Yeah, and do all this stuff.
Now I'm going to get my chance.
Yeah.
And you're just going, no, you're not.
And if anyone doesn't remember, that's the guy that killed Rylan.
Yes, her guard, the one that... And did she chop off his hand? I feel like we've come back to this.
So, I was watching the video. I don't know. You did say that in the other one. I can't remember.
I'm sure she chops off his hand. Anyway, so then all of a sudden...
I'll write over the screen whether we find out if he does or not.
Nobody ever knows. Just check if you have one or two hands. So now Kieran slams into the stables and kind of says... Well, I don't think he says anything because he's in his wolfen form, but then Castile comes in.
Yes.
And Poppy's like, behind you. Oh no, okay, so Kieran mustn't be in the stable. So Castile comes barging in.
Yeah.
And then she says, he's behind you, look out. But instead, he picks up a bow. I don't know that you hold a bow like this. And he shoots her guard. He impales him straight onto like a barn pole, wooden pole.
Yeah, and then Kieran comes just like walking in
and
behind him, and he's not worried.
He's not worried at all. And
my heart is breaking again.
Well, there's this moment, right, where she just says that she stood there and she just felt like her heart just like fracturing, just like this pain in her chest. Like it might not be this point, but at some point I have read a description really well where it was like there was actually, it felt like I had to almost look down because there might have been a dagger in my chest. Like that's, like I imagine how Poppy feels because she's just chosen him and now all of a sudden she's like...
Yeah. She's literally the one choice she made for herself and he's betraying her.
Yeah. And she's still not really kind of sure, she's just like...
No, she doesn't realise, And then Jericho is just like there in the background saying, please let me kill it, please let me kill it. And then you kind of realise that Hawk is like
with them,
their leader kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he says, we need her alive. And you're just like, who is this we?
And then she tries to kill him.
For the first time.
Self-preservation. So she throws a dagger at him and they have a little fight. And I love these fight scenes where they're like tussling down on the ground and everyone around them is laughing.
And then he's also making like comments.
Oh my god, yes. He's like laughing at her, giggling.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. We just want to all be accepted for our outbursts of anger. And
Yeah.
he just takes it. He takes everything she wants to throw at him and he's just like, this is hot. Keep going.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. I don't think it's healthy, but we want it, honestly.
Yeah. I think this is another case of like it happening in a book is really amazing, but maybe in real life it probably wouldn't work. There's a lot of things in this series that are like that, I think. We'll come to those later.
Yeah. So then she basically won't stop. She's real mad.
Yeah.
She just keeps trying to like punch him and kick him and eventually he pins her, but she's still fighting, so they take her to the cells.
Yeah. And then so at what point does he, because in our notes we've put that he kind of reveals that he is working against, like he's basically a dissenter. Is that when she's in the cell or in the stable? I can't remember.
I think it's when...
Or is that her putting two and two together?
I think it's her putting two and two together, but the conversation happens in her cell.
Yeah.
Where he explains to her the history of the realms and who he is and why. Who she was the whole time, yeah. Which is just really sad.
Oh, I haven't read that scene where it's Hawk's perspective of the Red Pearl, and now I'm thinking I actually need to.
You definitely do.
Because it's a different, like it's not the Hawk that we now know, it's the Hawk that
It's
really
the
was
original,
planning
yeah.
to use her.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you do need to go and read it. It's really good.
Okay. And then Poppy tells him that she hates him.
Yeah. Oh, which
And
we
she-
know is not. In
She's
the moment,
not-
she's mad, but she could never hate him. Isn't half the problem.
I think she'd come pretty close at the
She
moment.
does come
She's
pretty
lost
close.
everything.
Yeah,
And
I
he's
think
the
when-
reason that like Victor's died.
Yeah.
I think that eventually all comes flooding back.
And I think the moment they take her to the cells is like a pivotal moment because she's like, I've never been treated like this. I might have been like caged and veiled, but I'm actually in a prison
prisoner.
cell. Yeah. So that feels
Yeah.
really different for her, I think.
Yeah. And then so she's in the cell.
And she's wounded.
Yeah.
She got wounded in the scuffle and she's got like a big slash on her side, but she didn't tell anyone about it. And then there's this like frustrating bit that comes out where Hawk's like, why didn't you tell anyone? And she's like, well, you only want me alive to send me off to be killed anyway, so what's the point?
Yeah, that's the point.
And he heals her wound basically with some like ointments.
Yeah.
And they have a chat about how a lot of the story comes out, like the storyline of the realms here. We kind of really find out that
real history.
how the Craven are created, which is from an ascendant in bloodlust biting a human and not killing them, and then they become cursed, Craven.
Yeah.
And we learn that Atlanteans were created in the image of the gods, and that they're actually like, because the ascended up until this point, Poppy believes are favoured by the gods because she thinks it's the god's blood that ascends them, but really it's an Atlantean's blood that ascends them, and the Atlanteans are the one that are favoured by gods.
Yeah.
So she learns all of that history, and she also learns that the War of the Two Kings was between basically the Ascended and the Atlanteans against the mortals. They fight again. Not bad. Just is she chained? I don't know that she is chained.
I don't think so.
So I think they just get into a bit of a against the wall scuffle.
Yeah.
What else? Yeah. Oh, and we learn here that the Atlantean they're using to ascend is his brother. It's Malik.
Well, do we find out it's his brother? No.
Oh, they just know this.
Yeah.
God, I'm really.
I think later we do. She puts that together, but I think at
we know
this
that
point,
it's the prince.
It's the Dark One's brother, and it's Prince Malik.
That's right, because at this
We don't
point
know.
she knows he's the dark one. She doesn't know he's.
That's later in this book, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you picked that up.
And then as he's leaving, he just says, "Remember, it wasn't a lie."
We don't believe you right now. Don't believe anything that's coming out of your mouth. I think it's also you get that moment as well where he says that he killed the Duke, which you kind of thought, but
Yeah.
and that's interesting as well because he didn't need to do that necessarily, and not in the way that he did.
And he didn't know, right? He maintains that he didn't know that the dissenters were going to attack the castle that night at the ride.
Yeah.
He says they did it in my name, in my image, but I didn't
it
have
wasn't
it in
an
hand.
order or anything.
So in his mind, what did he think was going to happen that night? A gift to Poppy hung up at the right was the Duke's body. He just thought that was just the only reveal that was going to happen. He did not know that was all going
It
to
was
break
in
loose.
this huge
Imagine
thing.
how different the story would have played out if, like, the
That
right was
didn't
just wonderful and nothing bad
And she
happened, and
wouldn't
then
have
they just dropped the curtain and he's there.
Yeah. Would she have still been summoned? I don't know. Maybe because it was like the attack of the Duke, possibly.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, it is. Oh, and then we find out, just like most of our book boyfriends, he's seen 2 centuries.
Did we find that out? Yeah. We love it. 2 centuries is the perfect amount of time for a man to just become himself.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Okay, so yeah. And she says that their sleeping together was a mistake. Oh, Poppy. And then he tells also the history of Malik and Isbeth.
We just know that Isbeth was the
Exactly.
first ascended, yeah. And it was Malik
Yeah.
ascended her because they were heartmates.
Yeah. Yep. And,
My brain just keeps going back to Sarah and Victor's.
so does mine. I'm
I
not
just can't
in
hear
this right now.
What have we done? We
Yeah.
went too fast. Anyway, it will be fun. Because this scene actually, I like this scene. I don't know why I should say that, but it's a very
I think you get
intense
so
scene.
many answers in such a short period of time.
Oh no, I mean the scene where they try to come and kill her.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that is weird.
I just think it's like, I don't know, it's just like this crazy moment where she learns about like people just being so unnecessarily cruel and just like, yes, what Hawke has done is terrible, but he's not this awful human being coming here to like kill a person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't know. I feel like it just goes from bad to worse for her.
Yeah. The thing here is that Delano and Niall.
Yeah, we have difficulties with.
I don't know how to say it.
No, we call him Niall, but it's
I'll
not
call
spelled
him
Niall.
Nail.
I'm not saying it like that. Yeah, no, it's Niall.
They come to remove her from the cell because she spent a day or 2 there now.
Can I just ask? Did we mention the bit? Sorry to go back, but it's probably pivotal. Is that she was going to be used as ransom to be swapped?
Oh, maybe we haven't.
I don't know. I feel like we may have transmitted that through our brains, but not vocalized.
Poppy's whole point in the book is to be used as bait to get Malik back,
Yeah.
Prince Malik,
Yeah,
because
brother of the Dark One.
she's the favourite of the Queen, so they think that they want her back so badly
Yeah.
that they'll give him back.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Now back to Delano and I love Delano. They don't.
So they come to take her back to the castle because she's obviously cooled down a little now. She's not trying to kill Hawke. So while they're there, they're about to bring her out, and down
She's still in her
pops,
cell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
down pops Jericho, Mr. Tullis,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I feel like there's maybe 3 other random
Yeah,
dudes
just randoms, we don't know.
that we don't know, and they're all using this opportunity with the cell open, with her moving, to kill her. And they've got some knives and
whatever.
they attack. And Delano and Niall protect her, obviously,
Yeah.
really sweetly, and they get quite injured.
Yeah.
And she gets stabbed.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, she's like dying.
Oh, Mr. Tullis.
Yeah, Mr. Tullis. So after everything,
And then she says she
I'm
really,
sorry.
yeah, like she really wished it was a different outcome for
so
her.
there's this moment where, like, as he's stabbing her,
and
there's
she
like
feels like
eye
she's
contact,
dying. Yep.
and he's there, And there's also these like weird moments where they're like smiling and taunting her, like they're just cruel.
Oh, it's actually really cruel.
Yeah, but it's an intense scene.
It is really.
And then the fact that she comes so close to death, I think. Yeah. Because so many times in these books we get scenes where there's like, you know, she'll get kidnapped or something will happen, and it's like they never come this close to death. I feel like she's like knocking on the door. She's like on the ground, dead, half dead. And
I think you made a note that they're all cheering.
They're all cheering. It's just sometimes, and I say I love this scene, but it's more like when you read a part in a book that just gives you this like swell of emotion, and you're just like, oh my god! And that's how I felt when they were like, cheering, and she was just so
it makes you really uncomfortable. I felt really uncomfortable for sure. Yeah, you just feel so sad for her.
And then what happens is Kieran arrives. I don't actually know how he knows that there's anything going wrong in the cell, but he arrives.
Doesn't Delano
call him?
Or I'm assuming he's transmitted something, surely.
Yeah.
Don't they all talk to each other through their brains? Or is it just to her?
Through their brains? I thought it was just her, but maybe there is a little bit of
maybe I'm thinking of Twilight.
Maybe they can like sense emotion between the other books a little bit.
Yeah.
But maybe she's coming to check because they haven't arrived at the castle.
Yeah.
So anyway, in any case, he goes down there. I'm assuming it's her picks her up because Delano's injured and I'm not sure what happens at this point, but carries her back and says, "Get the prince."
Yeah.
And she hears this in her like half delusional bloodlust
I did not pick up on this. Yeah.
And they say, "Get the prince," and then she ends up back in her room and Hawke's there.
Yeah.
And I think she's still a bit like, "Is the prince coming?" Yeah. But then he basically says,
because I think they say earlier, don't they say that Prince Castile is meant to be the Dark One? Isn't that who we assume is coming?
Yeah.
Is that the prince we assume?
We assume the Prince Castile, But she knows he's the Dark One now. But so she now does think. She thinks he's the Dark One from the stable, doesn't she?
Not yet. I think we made a note specifically.
Or she just thinks he's working with them.
Yeah, so we said earlier, because she still thinks he's Hawke.
She's half dead and she hears Hawke saying to her, "You're not going to die, you're not going to die."
Yeah.
And drink my blood. And she still, even though he's explained to her the history of the realms in the cell, she doesn't believe him. And so this is really important for the book progress because she thinks his blood still will turn her into a Craven.
Yeah.
That's what she's been taught her entire life.
Yeah, I think it would be so hard to go from like your whole knowledge base and your whole, I guess, understanding of life and then having it change so quickly. I wouldn't believe it either.
And so she wakes up after being fed the blood, asking, right, "Am I a Craven?" And he's like, "I told you the truth about the realms." And I think, and then when she wakes up, she's like, my whole world is different now because I know for a fact 100% that your blood did not turn me into a Craven. Yeah. So how do the Craven exist? Yeah. And she starts to really question this. Yeah. And then I think, we've made a note. So now she realizes who he is, and then it's actually his brother. That's been kept. Yeah. And then I think as well here, for later in the story, the moment when Kieran is trying to warn him not to give her the blood because we know, right, that not that it's against the law, but it's kind of forbidden. It's discouraged when they're this close to death because they don't want to risk sending them. And I wonder if looking back, this is the first time that Kieran is like, he's literally completely ignoring every rational thought. Yeah. Because Kieran kind of, he gets it from the start when it comes to those two. And I think this might be one of the first moments when he's like... where it kind of hits. Yeah, that's true. And then
she starts remembering things. She remembers all the people that are killed because of him.
Oh, you're just going to skip over her little spot of sexual interest?
Yeah.
Who? She described what?
No, I just skipped that. Sorry, we'll go back. Where do you want to go?
Where do you want to go?
Before that.
So after she takes all his blood, we realise that his blood is a little bit of an aphrodisiac. And so she's feeling a little like she wants him, but she's confused because she hates him. Yeah. And then he tells her why she's feeling like that, obviously. Yeah. And I don't think anything happens between them because then at this point she like kind of almost snaps to her senses a little. Yeah. And pushes him away. And
but it's just over him again.
Yeah, that's how the forest scene comes around.
Sorry, what?
You can tell my bite would not be pleasurable.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Yeah, she stabs him with a dagger in the heart. And
oh yeah, that's down a bit now. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember now.
and
I'm just like,
I love this moment because she's so dead set she wants to kill him, and then the second the dagger's in, she starts crying and she's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. She's like,
she stabs him in the heart, hey?
yeah, she gets him straight in the heart.
Yes, and then she runs. Oh,
Yeah.
I caught up
Here we
now.
are. And I guess because she kind of, that's the first time I might have ever seen someone deny the sexual arousal that comes with a feeding, because she really does stab him and run away when she's in the middle of that. Like, we know what it's like, it's intense, nobody's ever said no to that. She says no.
She's just got so many emotions. Oh my gosh, I forgot about
Yeah, and so
that.
she stabs him,
Yeah.
she cries, and she hasn't cried since Victor died, but she's crying because she killed him.
And she still has all those feelings.
Mm-hmm. And then she runs.
Yeah.
And then,
I'm gonna let you just continue this bit, because these are.
you know, this is my favourite bit. So she's running through the snow. I think she's got no shoes on. She's
Probably.
just in like
Yeah.
inside clothes.
Yeah, probably.
And he runs and he like Atlantean like pulls up in front of her. Must do. I don't
No, I
know
think
if
he's behind her.
Is he behind her? But anyway, oh yeah, because he grabs her. Very reminiscent of Hawk on a Horse from behind, and he like tucks her in.
Yeah.
And in that moment, he says, "You forgot that it was real."
Yeah.
But I think he also says something really sexy along the lines of like, "That hurt," or you know.
Yeah, he does make a little comment.
Yeah. And then he bites her. And this is the first time she's ever been bitten. And JLA writes these bite scenes so well. Don't you
Yeah.
think?
Yep.
Yeah, just something about the way she describes like the pudding.
But yeah.
It's so good. Anyway, so then
But also like the mixture of pain and pleasure with
Yeah.
it, it's appropriate, I think. Yeah.
very appropriate. And then they end up having this really intense, quite rough sex in the snow.
Yeah.
For her second time, I'm like, okay, you do.
Yeah,
your
we've gone
You're very
gentle,
very
easing
gay.
you into things, and then wow. But yeah.
And
And
then
the practicalities of that, I feel like it would be interesting.
in the snow,
Mm.
easier than the beach, the sand.
Like less dirty,
Let's
perhaps.
say you just get cleaned at the same time.
Yeah.
It's melting. This is a bath.
But also freezing.
Yeah, freezing. And actually, there's something about her getting quite cold towards the end, right? And he like wraps her up and takes her inside. He like takes his shirt off, gives it to her. Anyway, she's really confused at this point. Can't blame the girl. It's
No.
confusing. You just tried to kill him. He's trying to sell you to
Yeah.
people who want to hurt you.
But then this all happens.
Yeah, and it's the beginning of the backwards and forwards.
I guess, like I think in the last video we were talking about how a lot of everything that happens with them, there's so much consent, and he's always asking her. This is probably the first time when he's just purely like he couldn't control himself.
And I think he's also like much more pissed at her than I think he lets on.
Do you think so?
Absolutely,
I
she
just-
stabbed him.
No, I think he just found that.
Oh.
I just think that's what pushed him over. It wasn't just her taking his blood. She stabbed him.
Oh my god, there's something very wrong with him.
And she
likes it.
Yeah, and
She
she tells him that there's something wrong with him. Poppy's confused, and then Hawk takes her, instead of down to a cell, she gets her own room, and Kieran is kind of there watching her. And you still don't know what to think about Kieran at this point.
And we just have a little a little pause and a
skim.
skim through the book, and there's an important conversation with Kieran in there, which is not the part you've got highlighted, but I thought it was quite important because Kieran basically says
Oh,
the conversation with her along the lines of like he does care for you kind of thing more than he should because he knows
Yeah.
that I'm in a tragedy.
Yeah,
And I like that
another
about Kieran.
tragedy, he says. And then you're kind of just like, well, what other tragedy? Is it
Yeah.
referring to his brother being taken, or is there something else?
Because we do know that Malik ascended his birth, don't we? And she turned into
Yeah.
Miss Vendredi. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
that's
I
obviously
heard.
what he's referring to. I
Oh, when it said another tragedy, I just thought it meant another tragedy for Castile
think.
or Hawke, which there's been a few.
There has been a few. But you love this section.
Yeah.
And when she's
So it's when like Poppy is trying to dissect and kind of piece together everything that she's been told against what she knows and all this kind of thing. And I just want to read this bit because I think this is heart-wrenching with just what all the things she's just been through, and this is what she thinks.
take it away, Sammy.
So she's thinking like, how could I stay with him? And then no matter what I felt for him, I could never trust him. And what I felt for him was also something I could no longer pretend didn't exist. I loved him and I was in love with him.
Aww.
I just think that's
So
heartbreaking.
sad, so conflicting.
It is.
She really just doesn't want to love him, but she can't help it.
Mm-mm.
I mean,
But then it's also just like fate, like them and
they are meant to be. Yeah. It's almost when we get more like involved in the fates and the RA, I imagine that's how we say it. It's interesting that like it's important that they say that some couples who bring about great change in the realms are often fated to be heartmates. And it's interesting, that theory or that line of thinking, because they go through so much.
Yeah.
So it's almost like they have to be, in a way, they have to be fated for them to overcome and actually remain together, because there's
and
so much
everything that they go through.
Yeah.
I think particularly this kind of betrayal
Yeah.
is a huge one for them.
Yeah,
And
and
it's-
if they, well, yeah.
We won't
I
continue.
can't finish that train.
Okay. That's fine.
But so okay, after she has a chit chat with Kieran,
Yep, and has these processed thoughts.
she goes to the hall,
She goes to the hall or is taken to the hall for dinner.
taken to the hall, and sees. I was going to skip straight to like the ending of the book, but sees them all nailed up again.
I think that is so important. I completely forgot that this was in this book. I for some
Yeah.
reason thought it was in the next one. So basically all the people that had gone down to the cell and went against kind of Castile's word or Hawke's word, he has killed most of them.
Well, yeah,
But one.
yeah, they've been put up there. I don't know if they were killed up there or like killed and then put up there.
Yeah,
But
and
one
he's
is up there alive.
yeah, and so he's basically like put them all on a wall to essentially say if anyone else tries to harm Poppy in any way, this is what's going to happen to you. And he leaves one of them alive.
And Poppy, whilst she's somewhat, as you would be,
She's so beautiful.
somewhat intrigued by his desire to like want to hurt people that hurt her,
Yeah,
she's also kind of like, there should be a little bit of dignity in death.
yeah,
And there's no
yeah,
dignity in that. And I think the thing about these relationships, right, is that they often make each other more human, because they're both
Yeah.
very powerful beings
Yeah.
and can forget sometimes their humanity. But her saying that to him was like, oh, and then we know that he kills them and takes them down not long after that, right?
Yeah.
Because she says,
Yeah.
she reminds him that, yes, I understand the show of power and
yeah.
that is important, but there should still be some dignity in death.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it also proves that they're in some way human and kind of react to things through their emotions. Maybe we wouldn't react quite to that extent, but I definitely...
It pisses me off. The ending.
Yeah, so Hawke kind of reveals to Poppy that he thinks she actually might be part Atlantean.
Because he fed from her and he was like, you taste
Familiar or,
Yeah.
and so he says, I'm going to take you home. And she believes that means back to Carcedonia or to the, what is it? Wait, there's a Macedonia?
Macedonia and Carcedonia.
So she thinks it's one of those. And then he's like, no, back to Atlantia.
Yeah, and then why? Why, Sammy? Why are they going back to Atlantia?
Oh my gosh, because they're going to be married
Yeah.
and they must do it on home soil.
And the end of the book is so funny because she's basically like, fucking no.
Yeah, exactly. And you're just like,
And everyone around them is like, Castile's just like nails these bodies to the wall and he's like so violent and nobody dares to cross him, and here's Poppy with this butter knife strapped to her thigh, like,
Oh,
I will not marry you, in front of everyone, like, what? You are crazy.
Does that happen in this book or at the start of the next
I
book?
think it's the start. The butter knife is the start. I think at this point she's probably even got no weapons, but she's still like, you're an idiot.
I think you're right. I think she has the butter knife for sure. That is so funny. And then it just ends.
And then it ends, yeah.
And you're just like, well, now I've got to read the second book.
Which we did immediately after.
Yeah, because I was just, I was so annoyed that he didn't drop down on one knee and in some way propose. He's just like, no, we're getting married.
Oh, the star. I still think about that. The ring. I still think about the ring that I think he's going to give to her when it comes out at the end. Remember I told you that she talks about the star ring?
Oh.
That's still the ring I think he's going to give to her. And
Has she not got a ring yet?
she hasn't got a ring yet. But also, really cut this from the end. Yeah, so
Yeah, so that's where we left off. Rating, would you rate it?
oh, it's so hard for me to rate this book because I read it so long ago. But I definitely would say that I would give it, I want to say like 4 to 4.5 out of 5.
Wow, yeah, out of 5.
I know you would, what are you going to give it?
5.
Yeah, I was like, you love this one so much.
I did. I think it was so perfectly, like I know, I was on Reddit yesterday because I finally finished Light the Flame. I was like, yes.
I can
safely tread. But I know a lot of people had issues with it, but I was just hooked from the beginning. I couldn't stop myself.
Yeah. I think I remember reading it and really, really, really liking it. And obviously I loved the series, but I do, and I definitely don't like the second book as much as the others when they're like stuck in that like backwards and forwards the whole time. But the third and the fourth book for me, once they like hit their stride and it becomes less about them and more about the world and like taking on their common enemies.
Yeah, and I love it when a series like that, it's like Throne of Glass when it's just this one thing to start with and then all of a sudden it opens up and it's just massive.
The world gets so much bigger.
Yeah.
And I also, like, I love Kieran so much. And
So
so
you
for
like
me,
to unpack that a bit more.
once that's unpacked a little more and we start to get to know Kieran more, that for me is when the books really hit their stride.
Yeah,
And I just, the relationship between the three of them is just,
It's
love it.
magic.
It's so beautiful, yeah. So for me, I give it, I'll say 4.
Okay, that's fine.
Only because I don't even know what gets a 5-star rating these days.
I think I just give them out.
I'll be
I'm either
happy.
a 3 or a 5.
Never a 1.
Oh, a DNF is a 1.
What?
I did not finish. It's a
Oh,
1 for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, there you go.
Alright. We made it! Oh my god, this should be slightly easier to edit.
Just slightly. I
It
can't
wasn't
believe it
quite
was
as
so
long.
long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alright, guys.
Bye.
Oh,
Do we say bye?
do we have any way we want to finish? Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Oh.
No, I can't be bothered. Bye.
Keep that in. I can't be bothered to plug us.
I'm over this chat now.
Okay, so I feel like we need to make some notes about the second book at some stage.
Oh, should I stop this?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.